Tenants in Oakland, California say a 3-year ban on evictions kept them housed. Well, I'm sure it did. Landlords say they are drowning in debt. They want out. They don't know what to do. Can you believe that an eviction moratorium is still in place in Oakland? Yeah, I can. I can as well, right? I can as well. Let's jump on into it. Let's see what we got going on. This topic's been popping up a lot in my feeds. One of the reasons that I'm reading this today is because so many of you sent me this video from Tony of Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Whoops. Here's Tony. All right, there's Tony. Oakland landlords are fed up after tenants demand landlords provide free housing. Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Let's get into it. I'm covering the same article he is because, yeah, it's a good article. So thank you all for those who sent it to me. Here we go. Retiree Pamela Haley has paid property taxes, insurance, and other bills, probably some maintenance on a house that she rents out in Oakland. But for more than 3 years, her tenants have paid no rent, thanks to one of the longest lasting eviction bans in the country. Eviction bans should have never happened. Period. That was just some nonsense, and it's ridiculous. And one of the things that from Tony, from the channel where this video sourced from, he made the really, really good point that, you know, if people are hungry, you don't expect the grocery store to give them free food. But if people aren't able to hold their jobs, somehow you're expecting small landlords to give them free rent. That's how this equation goes. How is that so backwards and yet acceptable? No, eviction moratoriums. No, you got to figure it out, right? You can't have just one side of the equation. Doesn't work like that. Well, in Oakland, it does. The eviction moratorium in the San Francisco Bay Area city expires next month, and Haley can't wait. That was, this is back from June, late June. The 69-year-old estimates she is owed more than $60,000 in back rent, money she doubts she will ever see. Moreover, the tenants have trashed her house, and it will cost tens of thousands of dollars to make it habitable, she says. So a lot of times tenants have not paid. They've used weak excuses as to why they haven't paid. The cities have said, yeah, it's okay. We know that you're so close to being unhoused. We're going to let you stay. And these landlords, they don't have the money to keep this going. Now, this woman, the 69-year-old, do you think that's maybe part of her retirement plan? Right? I mean, and yet the city is basically dictating what she can and can't do with her own assets. She can't kick them out. She can't move new tenants in. She can't fix up her spot. She's hosed. She's stuck. And a lot of these tenants in Oakland, they are members of the BIPOC community. I've seen that time and time and time again. And you watch footage and you'll see photos and you'll see, okay, this is the Oakland community. These are not just a bunch of big corporate landlords, with huge, deep pockets. These are people within the community that own one or two. We call them mom and pop landlords. That's anybody who has just a small portfolio or even just one rental housing, right? It's unbelievable. And it's like, how can they have the nerve to just let something like this happen? How do we shut down the economy during the pandemic? We're doing what? Why? We're doing eviction moratoriums? Why? That's not how this works. That's why you have savings. So if something goes sideways in your world, you've got money to outlast situations, right? But no, nobody needs savings anymore because the government's just going to say, you don't have to pay rent. If this happened to them, how would they feel? Haley said of her tenants. Dealing with this whole thing gets me so upset. It's because we're working on socialism. This is socialism. Those who have are going to pay for the have-nots. How's that working out? Well, here's one of the things. Has rent gone up? Rent has gone up significantly, hasn't it? And as you have more and more of the landlord pool say, I do not want this to happen. And Tony indicated he can't recommend people in the state of California buy a rental property. because this could happen to you. I do the same thing for people in Seattle. Hey, you want to buy a house as a rental in the greater Puget Sound area? No issues. We've got great employment. Just don't buy one in the confines of incorporated Seattle. Do not buy one there. Do not. Because the restrictions are so onerous against the landlord, against the owner of the property, that why would you even do that? Why would you even do that? Well, the reason you would do that is because proximity to downtown core means you're going to have greater demand for properties. But, that whole downtown core thing is a little bit in play, right? Because now we've got the work from home and maybe 50% of the buildings in downtown are vacated. And you got some troubles in downtown. You got some issues. So not everybody wants to be a landlord. Not everybody's trying to get into downtown. But one of the major repercussions of having people out there, professionals saying, don't buy a home to be a rental in Seattle. Don't buy a home in all of California to be a rental because this thing might happen to you, is that they are selling those properties. And when you take from a small limited pool, which is rental pool, and you make it even smaller, what do you think happens to those prices? What do you think happens? So these eviction moratoriums are literally driving rent through the roof because inadvertently they're shrinking the pool. And so when you've got fewer, still greater demand, guess what? You're going to put even more pressure on these tenants not paying rent that you're so desperately trying to help. Eviction moratoriums were put in place across the U.S. at the start of the pandemic in 2020 to prevent displacement and curb the spread of the coronavirus. Yeah, well, that ended up just being a joke, didn't it? Yeah, that was stupid. It was stupid. Should have never happened. Most expired long ago, but not in Oakland or neighboring San Francisco and Berkeley, all places where rents and rates of homelessness are high. And again, same thing with the analogy at the grocery store. People are hungry. You don't expect the grocery store to feed them, right? No, you don't. You expect the food banks hand out food. You expect charities go work on that. There are things for this, and it is not the small private landlord's responsibility to cover their tenants who might just say, you know what? I don't really feel like working to pay rent, so I'm going to take a little breather, and I'm not going to pay any rent. It's okay by the cities, right? Because that's what they're into. They're into this socialism type concept of, everything for everybody. It'll be good, except for the landlords. So we don't care about the landlords. I mean, literally, I forget who it was. I think it was somebody from San Francisco or one of those jokesters in the squad said, well, landlords have the ability to go to a bank and get a loan if they need to because, the tenants aren't paying. So, they don't have any income, but landlords can just go to a bank and get a loan. They have far more resources. They shouldn't have to. That's not the drill. Landlord's job isn't to pay for the homeless. It's not that hard to figure out, right? Well, it's more common to see tenants converging on city halls in California to demand greater protections. In Oakland and surrounding Alameda County, small property landlords staged protests earlier this year demanding an end to the moratorium. Why are the moratoriums still in place? The pandemic's been over for how long? That's ridiculous. Well, it's because when they end, there's going to be some unhappy people, right? You're just basically kicking that can down the road. And then, cities that took off their moratoriums long ago, they've already dealt with it. Oakland, they're going to the very bitter end, right? They're going to the 11th inning. We've got the Major League Baseball All-Star game going in Seattle this week. End of this week. Should be entertaining. Just did a podcast on how Seattle's swept up all the RVs very nicely, but then a group of the RV folks, urban campers and RVs, they're gonna, on the evening of the game, Tuesday at midnight, Tuesday's the game, Tuesday at midnight, they are going to all converge on the stadium in their RVs. Just see if that happens. Many of the landlords were Black, like Haley, or Asian American, and they said the eviction bans had saddled them with debt and foreclosure worries while their tenants who have jobs live rent-free. Those who have, give to the have-nots. You'll have nothing and you'll like it. Where have I heard that before? They scolded elected leaders for allowing tenants to self-certify that their inability to pay was tied to the pandemic. Self-certify? I couldn't pay, couldn't work, no, couldn't do it. No, a lot of Xbox though. A lot of smoke in the doobie. Unlike large corporate landlords, these small property owners said that they don't have the means to evict and were eaten up by worry. Yeah, they don't have the means to hold on, although they've gotten, this far. But now how far upside down are they? I mean, this is not something where this is encouraging people to, have great credit, which landlords have to, because in order to get a loan for a non-owner occupied rental property, you got to have pretty good credit. The bank wants to know, okay, number one, you can make your own mortgage payment on your own house. Number two, you're taking on greater debt, and the odds are you're going to default on that second home, that rental property, if all goes sideways, because you still need to have the one over your head. So you're going to bail on that one. So we want you to have some good reserves in the bank. We want you to put a good sized down payment. We're going to boost up your interest rate just a little bit over typical owner occupied. And you're going to have a decent credit score. So yeah. There's nothing natural about being forced to house and have people live in your property for over 3 years and not pay, said Michelle Haley, who is also Black and owns a triplex where both her tenants stopped paying. There is nothing natural, ethical, or even humane about that. And yet we did it across the board. Oh yeah, that's a good call. That's a good one. Got to stop the spread of the Rona. And you're like, what? What? We're doing what? That's insane. Alameda County let its moratorium expire at the end of April. In Oakland, it ends July 15th. Tenants must start paying back rent in August in most cases, but cannot be evicted for back rent if their financial hardships was caused by the pandemic. How long ago? I mean, really, the pandemic was active, 2020, 21? We're in, late 2023 now. We're in July of 2023. Are you really going to indicate financial hardship for this long? Go out and get yourself a damn job and pay that rent. Period. Don't care. Don't care about the rest of your excuses. Just go do it like everybody else does. Moratorium backers called the bans a lifesaver that kept countless families housed and off the streets. Hey, the landlords had to come up with the cash somehow. So everybody's got to do their part, right? When you go into a worldwide pandemic. They said low-income residents are still struggling from the pandemic and need protections from ruthless landlords. It doesn't really sound like that's the case here, does it? Reading the case studies we've been reading. That doesn't seem like that's not really what we're doing here. Nationwide, eviction filings have come roaring back since the bans ended to more than 50% higher than the pre-pandemic average in many cities, according to Princeton University's Eviction Lab, which tracks filings in 36 cities in 10 states. All right, so 50% higher. Do you think there was just a little bit of backed up demand for eviction filings? Do you think that's the reason maybe you had a big spike in filings for eviction? Yeah, that is. Yeah, one of the things about tourism, I think it was downtown San Francisco, was that there was a term called revenge tourism. People were pissed that they couldn't go tour anything in 2020, 2021, part of 2022. And so then in 2022, they just went ham. There's like, I'm going somewhere. So it was revenge for being held down at home, right? Revenge tourism. So is this revenge eviction notifications? No, it's because there weren't any. And these landlords, they need to get their properties back to assets that are performing, right? Performing assets, banks do it. Yeah, same thing with landlords, right? You got to be able to get that income coming through. And if you don't, out you go. Boom, you're done. In California's Alameda County, filings topped 500 in May compared to 65. Is that Alameda County? I don't even know. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. People are always like, Sean, you need to know every single word that you ever read and pronounce. Like, yeah, that's not going to happen. That surpassed filings that averaged in the 300s before the pandemic in 2019. So 500 in May, 65 in April before the ban ended, 300s before the pandemic. That's not surprising at all. That's not shocking at all. In Oakland, a city rich in Black history, some Black families who migrated from the South during World War II were able to purchase homes despite redlining and other discriminatory practices by banks and government. If people want to own a home in the US of A and they work hard enough at it, they can do it. All of this restrictive redlining, people somehow figure out a way to make that work, right? And they're not held back. Well, all that redlining happened and I couldn't get a place. If you work super hard, if you save your money, you work on your credit, you make it a goal to own a home, you live in the USA, you're a citizen of the USA. And not necessarily all of those components do you need. There's a high probability you can make it work. Working super hard towards that goal would be the number one requirement. You got to want it. You got to want a house. You can't just like, yeah, I'd like one, but you know, the redlining, it's just not going to work out for me. I'm not going to be able to do it. Okay, that's fine. There's plenty of other people who will. But a recession and subprime mortgage crisis followed by rapidly rising home prices and gentrification pushed out many Black residents and homelessness escalated. That does happen, but the homelessness that we see is particularly here in Seattle. And I understand the population demographics are different, but so many of the homeless folks here in Seattle, they are not from here. They're not from here. San Francisco, homeless folks selling drugs, doing drugs. I mean, study after study, even I think it was last week or the week before, of the 45 arrests that were made as Mayor London Breed in San Francisco does a big push on outlawing open air fentanyl use, drug use in general. Of the 45 arrests that were done in this high profile deal down in San Fran, down in, I believe that was in the Tenderloin, that area. Of the 45 arrests, 3 of them were from people from San Fran. 3 out of 45. I mean, those numbers tell you something, right? So this whole thing, many Black residents and homelessness escalated. Okay. Well, if you really want a house and you really want to battle and you really want to fight, you're going to figure out a way. You're going to make that happen. If it's not a big goal of yours, you want to let your house go, you go down those roads. Okay. Carol Fife, a Black city councilwoman and housing advocate, called for a housing overhaul that focuses on homes for people instead of profit for a few. We'll see. We're just going to give everybody a house, or she acknowledged that some people took advantage of the moratorium, but says most renters desperately needed the help. Most renters, you should have a backup plan. What happens if you don't have money set aside for an emergency like a global pandemic? It's basic budgeting that the rest of us have been doing for years and years and years, because you just need to be prepared for if something happens. You go spending all your money on ridiculous stuff that you may or may not need. You don't have a backup plan for when a global pandemic happens. Yeah, you're going to be hosed. But the landlords shouldn't be backing you up. That's not their job. Their job is to take care of their asset. And with you not paying and you destroying their asset, that is straight up un-American. Haley, the triplex owner, considers herself lucky because she was able to recoup some money through a rent relief program. There's a lot of that out there. But the wheels on that turned slowly, right? The tenants moved out, but she has a stack of bills and can't afford to renovate. This is going to set a lot of landlords back a lot of years. And you know what? It's going to not encourage people to go down the pathway of owning a single family home or any type of rental property. People are going to be like, yeah, I don't want to go through another pandemic again. No way. If I'm going to buy a property, I'm going to buy a property in a Republican-run city where they don't have these ridiculous moratoriums. And if they do, it's for a short period. I know I can get through that. Boom. We're on to living, because that's the way it needs to be. She purchased the property in 1999 after earning big for writing some songs included in the first Destiny's Child album. The artist figured the triplex would provide steady income as well as help fund her retirement. And that's what most people figure. Hey, I'll get this bad boy paid off. Cash will be coming through. It'll be a little bit of extra. I'll have appreciation. World's your oyster, right? Yeah, pandemic comes along. Rent moratorium. What? We're doing what? Why? So this was my entire plan, and I've just kind of watched it go up in smoke, said Haley 59. We've never had a situation where you would have government-sanctioned freedom to not pay your rent. No. And why did we? I mean, that whole thing to me is just, it's literally un-American. It's so ridiculous. Haley doesn't know why the family who rented the house her parents left her stopped paying rent in April of 2020. The property management company said that they couldn't ask because of the eviction ban. This was so one-sided, so lopsided. Reached by the Associated Press, the tenant, Martha Pinson, said at the advice of a community nonprofit, she stopped paying after she lost her hotel housekeeper job during the pandemic-triggered shutdown in March of 2020. Even now, she can't afford the $1,875 a monthly rent on her pay as a custodian at a homeless shelter. Life sucks. Life is hard. You got to figure it out. All right. So maybe if you're a custodian, maybe you go to another area of town. Maybe you go out of area. Maybe you go somewhere where you can get the same job. Rent is cheaper. You got to work that out. You got to figure it out. You can't rely upon others to make it happen for you because eventually that's just going to go sideways. Pinson's 19-year-old daughter, Bridget Cortez, said the moratorium gave her mother peace of mind during the pandemic. How about the landlord? What kind of peace of mind did the landlord have? None. She said the property management company has for years ignored their requests for repairs. All right. We've had a lot of troubles in this house since we've moved in. That's not the point. If you want to take that up, you got to let the landlord know. You got to, be Johnny on the spot with that. She said, adding that they are looking for a new place to live. Haley says the tenants never asked for repairs. Okay. So somebody's lying here, right? John Williams, 62, hopes that 3 years of worry and stress are coming to an end. Williams, who's part of a lawsuit against Oakland and Alameda County over the bans, said his tenant stopped paying the $1,500 monthly rent when the pandemic started. She offered no explanation while operating a storage business out of the apartment and would not cooperate so he could get money from the city's rent relief program, he said. As a black man, Williams had experienced rental discrimination, and he thought his Victorian duplex in West Oakland would be a way for him to retire and house others. He started renting to the mom with 2 kids in 2013. In late 2020, he tried to sell the house, but she refused to move and the sale fell through. In late 2021, Williams was so stressed he was hospitalized, placed on disability, and could not work. He was forced to move into the unit above his tenant. It no longer felt like his house. Because it's not. It's under somebody else's control. He doesn't have full control of it. He has fee simple to the title, but he doesn't have fee simple rights, right? That's the full bundle of rights. Can't do what he wants. The government has stopped him. Oh yeah, we got this rent moratorium going on. You're just going to have to suck it up and, you're just going to have to figure it out for a while. I get it. It still doesn't make it right at all. The tenant did not return messages from the Associated Press left at a phone number. Williams supports the purposes of the eviction ban, but wishes the city had considered landlords like him. He was about to lose his home on May 1st, but was saved by a state mortgage relief program that started accepting applications this year from landlords who reside in their duplexes and triplexes. So that's owner-occupied. That's not even non-owner-occupied, right? He plans to leave the city. I don't want to be a home provider in Oakland, he said. This has been a really hard time. And yeah, that's what I hear as the owner of and managing broker of a real estate firm here in Seattle, Washington, Bellevue, Washington, to be exact. During the pandemic, I heard so many people saying, yeah, I think I want to get rid of my rental. Or people saying, hey, I'm thinking about buying a rental in Seattle. Have you followed that storyline? Do you know that you could have your asset totally trashed, taken over by somebody else? And you couldn't do a damn thing about it for years? I mean, literally years. If that's something you'd like to sign up for, sure, you bet. Go ahead and make an offer. Let's get you into something today. I mean, why wait until tomorrow? Let the suffering begin. And there's no guarantee that, we're going to have another one of those or we're going to have another eviction moratorium. I hope we don't, because that's just stupid. I mean, it's so one-sided. It's so lopsided. It's just the most ridiculous thing ever. Oh, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay. It'll be all good. I mean, just pay whenever you need to, or don't pay, do your thing. You will have nothing and you will like it. That's what all of this just reeks of to me. So I'm a big property rights guy because I'm in real estate and I know how hard it is for people to earn the amount of money to put away money for their down payment of that first property. I see that happen all the time. People have to make huge sacrifices in order to get into a property. And what you're saying is you're seeing tenants take advantage of that oftentimes. I'm not saying all of them do. And you know what? I know a lot of landlords that had very little issues with their tenants paying. Tenants kept their jobs. Tenants had, some buildup of savings. It became a rainy day. The pandemic created a rainy day when they decided to shut down the economy. So you got to have some savings, right? A lot of those tenants paid. There's a lot of good, honest, paying tenants out there as well. But with the restrictions that some of these cities, including Seattle, including Portland, including Oakland, have put on the landlords, that to me is a no-go. And as a result, you're going to take more out of that pool, that rental pool, and your rents are going to go even higher. So now that $1,850 that you've got, that $1,650 rent, that's going to go to $2,000. That's going to go to $2,100. So unfortunately, what has transpired has done the opposite, and it's made it more expensive for tenants in the long run. Even in the short run, I mean, rents just went through the roof, right? I mean, just boom, skyrocketed. Some of the rents that I see are just insane. It's like, you're paying that for that. Oh my word. What is this world coming to? And I understand. I work with millennials all day long and, trying to get folks into homes that, are super expensive. Your first home's going to be $1 million, $1.1 million, both you and your wife or girlfriend or fiance or whatever are working away. And you're wondering how you're going to make it. And you guys are making $200, $225. And you're like, oh my gosh, we still can't save enough for this down payment because the down payment's got to be $250,000, 20% down, something like that. You're like, $250,000, that should be the cash price for a home, right? I mean, now I'm just sounding old. John, you're old. You need to be put out to pasture. My son, Brennan, who's no longer with us, he always said, Dad, I'm going to put you in a home. I'm going to put you in a home. We always thought that was funny. I'm like, yeah, try. You try. I'm going to have to be old and decrepit before you put me in a home. It was always still funny because it was like if I was saying something that was kind of hardcore and I was really drawing a line in the sand, that was his go-to. Dad, we're putting you in a home. I'm like, oh, okay, good luck with that, son. Good luck with that, son. I do miss him terribly. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.